Hi, my name is Bilqis and I'm the president of My Dance Alliance. We are producing the Dancing in Place site-specific performance program over 3 weekends of Urbanscapes in Chinatown, and we will be showing 12 short dance works all over the River of Life area, outdoors and free for the general public. Well, Dancing in Place started in 2009, which was the first edition that I conceived of and ran, which was at Urbanscapes, my parents' private art center. So basically there we have a lot of space and we have a dance program there, but we don't have a performance space, not a formal theatre space. So if you wanted to have a performance, basically you had to do it in an outdoor situation because there was no other place to put a performance. So we started to do this regular weekend of outdoor works where the dancers would make a site-specific work, meaning it was made specifically for a particular place in the garden or in the heritage houses or in the architecture. It was designed for that spot. So then people would come and see it in that spot, and then they would move around in the audience group from spot to spot, seeing different works at different spots. So this is the first time that we're having Dancing in Place in Chinatown, and also the first time we're having Dancing in Place as part of Urbanscapes. So Grace from Urbanscapes and I walk through the space and we choose the places where it's both interesting visually and interesting historically and meaningfully, culturally meaningful. And also there's enough space for people to sit and it's safe and no one's going to get run over by a car or something like that. So then we chose basically 8 or 10 different spaces, which I gave to the choreographers and said, okay, you can now go and look at these spaces, sit in them, see how they feel to you, whether they inspire you, whether they make you think, oh yes, I know exactly what dance I'm going to put here, and then you tell me which space you choose. But in general, what I want them to do is to really respond to the space. And obviously the River of Life is an incredibly historic site. It is where Kuala Lumpur began. And most of us, even though we may be born and grown up in Kuala Lumpur, we don't really know very much about the history of our town. We don't know what happened on that space on the river. We don't know what they used to be there, the kind of buildings, the things that people do. So part of my job as kind of producer, coordinator, has been to feed the dancers small amounts of information, basically historical and cultural information about the site, so that when they go into the site and start making work for it, they make work that's more informed by a kind of historical sensitivity, so that they are making work about something that used to be there but isn't there now. You can't see it, but it's still part of the meaning of that site. It's a different process. In a way, it's actually somewhat easier because the space that you come to outside is already full of meaning. Spaces are not neutral. And every space has a history, it has a feeling, it has an atmosphere, it has sound, it has people who go through it, it has businesses, it has light, it has clouds, it has... Everything is already there in the space. So you actually don't have to create those things, you just have to respond to those things. And that also the audience can watch and get a new understanding of that space based on the work that you're doing. So there's a kind of mutual feedback mechanism that happens between your work and the space. Well, you can dance as soon as you can walk. You can dance even before you can walk. I think the younger you start, the better. Most of the members that we have, in fact, I would say all the members that we have in My Dance Alliance who are in the committee are all teachers. Most dance people make their living as teachers. So everyone is involved in the process of dance education. Very few people can say that they're somehow involved in dance, but they're not teaching at all. So we all know something about teaching at whatever level that is, whether it's teaching in preschool or sekolah rendah, sekolah menengah, or universities. And we teach in very many different ways. Of course, it would be wonderful, again, to see creativity and arts become more of an established part of our national curriculum, required in schools, rather than just part of the co-curricular activities. One of the other developments I think we've seen within the last 20 years or so is the difference between the international school system and the Malaysian school system in Malaysia, which previously we didn't have. Now you can make a choice to send your child to an international school if you have the money. Many parents are choosing to do that, and one of the main differences between the international schools and the local schools is that the international schools offer arts. And actually what parents are paying for is arts. Because parents understand that the arts provide a different kind of access to education, a different type of knowledge, a different cultivation of creativity, team building, challenging of the self, following your own curiosity, that they want, and they are willing to pay money to ensure that their children will have this. Of course, international schools have other facilities and opportunities, but the arts is really one of the main things that parents pay for. So I think the government needs to realize that part of a 21st century education is the arts. We can no longer afford to educate our children just to be knowledgeable, because that's 20th century education, where a child who knew lots of things was a well-educated child. We have the internet. We don't need to know anything. We need to know how to know or how to get to know. You need to know how to Google. So now, a 21st century education is about creativity, it's about working in teams. And this is something that the arts can teach you better than anything else. So if we're really going to move to 21st century education, we really need the arts to be part of our curriculum. All over the world, contemporary dance has the smallest audiences, it has the smallest support systems, it has the artists who are paid the least, it has the smallest amount of funding. So there are a lot of things you cannot do. And you come into the system knowing already that you cannot do these things. So then you just have to figure out, okay, within the very limited amount of resources that I have, and the goodwill of the people who are willing to work with me, what can you achieve within that? Which you can't achieve everything. So you've got to be somewhat pragmatic about the choices that you make. But people just try and make things happen. And they understand when you say to them, look, I can't get that for you. No, you can't perform in that space. DBKL's never going to say yes. Or, no, I can't give you an extra 500 ringgit because then all the groups are going to have 500 ringgit and that's going to be an extra 6,000 ringgit, or we don't have that. And I have to say that Malaysian dancers are really good at being independent. I don't think it's changing fast enough, but I think it's very much a reflection of the way that Malaysian society is. Malaysian society just is extremely polarized. We are very siloed. We can grow up just knowing the same ethnicity that we are, and the Malays talk to the Malays and the Chinese live with the Chinese, and no one ever really needs to break through these ethnic barriers. So the fact that the dance community is like this is no surprise to me. That's the way Malaysian society is. I would, of course, like to see the dance community become different, as I would like to see Malaysian society become different. But it's a long, hard road.